it's not that different from the latest one we did, except for you have no back.
I'm sorry?
Except you have no back lots. We have a small number.
Right, yes.
But many of these same elements, though, you're working in a couple of sort of central greens, as I'll call them.
Yes,
as opposed to
trying to cluster the lotting so we create distinctions within the total project area, which I think is important, the idea of neighborhood lotting. So you don't have just a big expanse of continuous zones running from point A to point B at conclusion. You actually start to build in little clusters, which kind of creates identity within the project area, and also creates connected greenway. We look at and talk about, as we try to put that together, taking green space A and connecting it to green space B, perhaps using the stormwater basin beneath the roadbed to connect and naturalize an area that becomes a feature in your development. To also look at the idea that those trees and natural areas, would provide a certain amount of connection to one another. I think that's an important component in the environmental considerations for the site as well. So there were some things that we wanted to perhaps challenge you to think about in your consideration of where you would like to go. And I don't think that this would necessitate a change in zoning for an overlay, or even perhaps even to go to a zoning hearing in the future. I don't know.
Yeah,
speak.
I guess let me just hand these to Ben. I think probably there are a couple of that I think are worth pursuing. No doubt about that. Because I think, quite honestly, what really kind of kills the improvement plan is the large piece of open space in the middle of the road traffic. That kind of, actually, I was out of the whole thing at that point. I had to kind of stay through this traditional use and everything. I think that the plan evolved to that point, and if it were a flat two-dimensional property, that would be okay, but it's not. And I think that's where it started to have some real problems. So the more compacted approach, whether it's kind of stretching things out in that fashion, or whether it's just compressing the loops, I think personally that's a better solution to what is on the site. And so, what I'd be curious to see, and you may be closer to it than I was, and that would be, if we draft that up ahead, and then take a look at it, and then we look at the standards in the approved plan to see how far we could it possibly just be considered an amended plan. Because that would then get through I understand exactly your point about the zoning. There's actually two aspects to the zoning that are a little bit of a wrench. In other words, number one, the fact that there were two different zoning districts and the densities were calculated on two different bases. And then the other thing, which I didn't realize until the last time I was here, so I think that was October, Carol had brought up the method of calculating density, which is the calculating the resources and then, well, here's what's interesting. I honestly did not know it. At the time, you only needed to total the resources on the R2 piece. You didn't need to do it on the BC piece. So it actually was not done for the total tract. Because that's where I started. After that meeting, I went back and tried to look up those numbers and see where they were. And that's when I was surprised to find out that it had only been calculated on the R2 piece. And then when I went back further and looked at the zoning, I realized, wow. So that just further complicates that whole process. Whereas if we can come up with a way of just a revised layout that everybody's happy with, we drop the down lot, and consider an amended plan, I think that possibly could be the solution.
Yeah, I would say that would be in keeping with it.
What's that?
I would say that would be in keeping with the conditional use that was granted.
I agree with you. I think that it would be, yeah.
One of the other things that we felt was important to the increased lot sizes back to the original 10,000 square foot or larger was the fact that you'd have more lot flexibility with the product that you offered, so we could perhaps even entertain the possibility of side entry garages and things that might change your marketability options when you go to sell lots and homes.
No, I think that that's true. Do you think there's a couple of those that are worth? I think especially 3 and 4, my own choice would be 3 and 4, but I think that they clearly are worth taking a look at. And then compare them to the approved plan. So that's something you would be absolutely willing to do.
How much, how can I put it this way? Looking at all the legal and zoning aspects, what would probably be the largest size lot that you would prefer? Right now, this plan is basically 7,000 square foot lots. If we were to make some concessions, what would you think would be a lot? I understand what you're trying to do, and I travel around a lot with my job, and I see a lot of the subdivisions that are being done, and there's a lot of small lots out there that are done very nice, and I'm more a proponent for keeping the open space. If, say, you would agree in our final approval process, if we'd ever get there, that you would cut the diseased trees out and put new growth, put trees that would be under consult with our planner for what we want to put there as a concession. I see the need of condensing the housing. I know what the market's like out there. I'm not a realtor, but I see what the costs are. I see what resales are. I have friends of mine who just moved down to Upper Providence. They're in a Toll Brothers project. It's approximately, I think, 10 years old, and the lots sell rapidly when they sell because of estate issues or things like that. And I have some pictures. I didn't print 100, but they're nice. The only thing I found in traveling around when I stopped and took measurements, we were talking about a 28-foot cartway. Most of the ones I've been in are 32-foot inside curb to inside curb. Not that I have a big variable with that, but I looked at it and I think 32 versus 28 is 4 foot more. It's a little bit wider. It gives you some better options for getting traffic by each other. But I'm just putting an idea out there, that's all.
Well, I mean, you asked me what our preference was. That actually is our preference.
That's your preference, I understand. But if there's a
we
conflict,
also don't really have a problem with the 10,000 square foot lot. I live in one of these neighborhood cluster developments in West Halford. You're allowed to go down to 8,000 square feet in that district. My lot's about 9,000 square feet. Personally, I wish it was a little smaller, just because I don't like cutting that much. So that's really what it comes down to. But the 10,000 square foot lot size of the original plan, that's perfectly fine. What was that?
The problem is now you're saying you live in Lower Salford on a small lot, but what is the overall zoning of the track? Is it zoned R? It's zoned R2?
No, it's not zoned R2, it's R1, but it's 1 acre lot.
Okay, so it's, but see, that's the problem. When everybody's speaking of these smaller lots, and the neighborhood cluster developments, they're on parcels that are zoned R3, R4, or whatever.
Well,
So,
I know what you're saying. But one thing I would draw your attention to, you brought up a really good point with the aerial. Could we go back to the one area?
Which one?
The one just here over.
The bare parcel?
Yeah. Clustering can be in any type of zone. The base zone can be any type really. And there's not always a strict correlation between the minimum lot size per se and the density. You can have very low density and also a fairly small lot size. And it can allow larger lots. It's not always that correlation. But one of the things that I would say this really points out is that this is a property that really is a good candidate for clustering. What you probably would not want to see would be the base zoning where it's just all out left. Right.
Yeah,
Because that really, you brought up a real good point. The funny thing is, even though there's some type contours here, down on the bottom, these are not steep slopes under your ordinance. Right. In here. This is not considered steep slope. Actually, in that woodlands, there's one little band of steep slopes.
Yeah.
Right up
It's
there.
just a lot of ravines.
It's actually fairly small, but then there is also a drainage swale through there that you really wouldn't want to disturb. And so in that sense, ideally, you really would want to concentrate with development. We were trying to concentrate in this field, but it should be in this field, and then maybe that. That's really where the development should be concentrated, and try to stay off the drainage areas and the bit of steep slopes. And by pushing things down the hill, you can at least minimize the disturbance of the earth moving there. So I think that's one of the reasons why you really do need a cluster ordinance. It should be something that you're comfortable with in terms of what it gives you.
For most of the ones around, all of the adjacent communities around here, they have their minimum lot sizes at 12,000 square feet, 25,000 square feet, we're at 10,000, and we already have the smallest, per se, lot size in the area. So maybe what you're saying is accurate, more dense areas where you're building. But if you look at the surrounding communities, they're all around, even with their neighborhood plotting, 10, 15,000 square feet. So at 10,000 square feet, we're already, the perhaps the lowest of the area. So to go any lower than 10,000 square feet, you're in essence asking us to change our R2 zoning to R4 zoning. So I think at least in my opinion, we need to stay at 10,000 square foot lots.
And as I said, we are absolutely willing to take a look at, the 10,000 square foot lot on,
And that's what,
in this type of.
but that's what your 2005/2008 plan was approved under. Now, if you tweak this too much, you're not going to be grandfathered under Act 54 anymore. In other words, this plan should have died 5 years ago. But because of Act 54, and that's why you're saying you're still entitled to a decade and a half old plan, if you do too many modifications to this, if you read the verbiage in Act 54, you're going to have to start from scratch. Chuck alluded to that earlier.
Well, yeah, but.
I think what he's talking about based on the changes of zoning map, you're getting into legal issues.
Right, I was going to say, that's something a solicitor would look at.
I'm trying to come up with a compromise where we can just have an amended, approved plan, and lot size is the same, number of lots are the same, and the open space is roughly the same. That's really all I want to know.
I mean, to me, what the concepts that Phil had shown and you seem to think or be thinking of, or even what you've shown tonight is reasonably consistent with what we looked at in 2000.
No, I think that is, I really do think it is. And what it might not, the one place again where I think some of your plans probably will, once it's drafted and that can be true, is we'll probably start realizing that there's a few of the standards regarding the neighborhoods that we have to kind of look at. Because I've done this long, and I know that that's always a place.
Right, we talked about how many homes can be in a cluster.
Exactly. And that's where we might just have a little bit of flexibility, but as long as it adheres to the original overall kind of structure, then I think that it would be a good solution.
Well, I tell you what I would really like to know, I'm guessing a lot of people would like to know, is when you come back and work things, you've done this other times, told us what hardships you encountered with the zoning, in terms of like we talk about another home in the cluster. We came to the tail end of what you guys walked in tonight, whether the steering committee meeting or the comp plan.
Right.
Which we would love that type of thing because we've seen a few plans come in now under R2 where certain people have said, hey, we need to have a second entrance. We don't like only having one entrance for this. You said that, and other people have said that. So maybe those types of things will come out of that, hopefully come out of that process. And if we realize that our cluster ordinances is getting us what we want, your feedback is valuable to us too.
Okay. I guess what I would propose is let us go back, let us hardline a couple of plans, and then also take a look at what the differences in the zoning, or the differences in the approved plan zone would be. And then let's present that. See if that would, and we're still going to use the same goals. We're still going to try to save as many trees as we can, minimize the amount of earth moving and grading. So
That's
we'll
the
still
most
try to
important thing to me, is try to eliminate as much as possible the disturbance and a lot of the issues. That's why I'm more leaning toward the 7,000 square foot off the top, just shooting from the top here. But if you can come up with another compromise, I don't know how you can get 10,000 and not do it on 10,000 square foot lots and not have a lot of, movement and work and stormwater, the issues. I think you limit your stormwater issues by concentrating, the development.
We do. I mean, that is one of the advantages of sort of our preferred, you're right.
And I'd rather see as much ground left open as possible. If you're willing, and you'd be willing to plant additional trees in that area, or put some kind of vegetation in there that would grow, that type of thing.
Yeah, do you think Chuck would get a little input from the attorney?
Sure.
Since he's here? Sure, so, I appreciate the conversation back and forth, it makes sense, I understand your needs and the planning commission's desires. On the other hand, and I think it makes absolute sense to go back, take a look, given the input that's been provided, come back with a plan, have that dissected, if you will, by the planning commission, the engineer, and then the planning commission can make their recommendation to the board of supervisors. Perhaps you end up getting before the board of supervisors and asking them to take a look at your concept plan and provide a little feedback that way. Yes, there are some interesting aspects of this for which I need to bring myself up to speed. How was this approved originally back in 2008? What's our timing on their being able to take advantage of the Permanent Extension Act? When does that expire? What would be the effect of that? What would be the effect of if the plan is still viable, the previously approved plan? At what point do the scales tip? Where it's some change, you can certainly make changes, no doubt about it. But at some point it tips. If you totally change the number of units, you go from 40 to 60, that's a significant change. But I think we all need to sit back for a bit and see what they come forward with, and then start making that analysis.
Yeah, I think obviously you've got a lot of reading to do.
Yeah, I'm interested in the idea of the cluster development and how that impacted their previous group, and how that might impact you, if it was. Or were you contemplating?
It was, because the way the cluster ordinance is, it's written, the way it's written now, it was at 5 to 25 homes, but the board of supervisors are able to grant a conditional use and increase the amount, and they weren't granted that to do the 46 lots at the time. So yes, that's already been utilized, and it is in the conditions or the notes.
Okay, so I have to educate myself on that. But the bottom line is, if they come forward with a plan that you all like, and you make that recommendation to the board of supervisors, and the board of supervisors like it, then we can make it work.
Yeah, I think, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought the preference of the group, after thinking about it, was not have to go back and change all the ordinance. Maybe it's substantial.
Where I'm at. I don't know if I want to speak for the others.
Not to speak for-
I want to show hands.
If you want to vote on it, that's fine. I'll vote on it right now.
I do think it was a clear direction. I think,
Yeah.
Burnsville, one way, Burnsville's the other.
Yeah.
I'm sure you know what the, right, when you go back.
Well, no, I think I do have a pretty good sense. I mean, in terms of minimum lot size, it's loud and clear, we're sticking with 10,000 square feet. And also in terms of any kind of wholesale changes, that's just on the table, overlays or any kind of new zoning amendments. I'll sort of go out on a limb and say I can maybe have some minor tweaks of the current neighborhood standards as they sit, because I want to see what it takes to get to this plan. Because my guess is it won't be exactly in conformance with everything, but it will be in terms of the lot size, the density, the open space is another thing that has to get measured, and that type of thing. But I think actually we've got pretty good marching orders, and so it's just a matter of seeing what it takes when you actually are on the plan up and see where that goes.
The other thing that Ernie brought this up, while we're all thinking. So, there's this right over here that you guys can put a gap in. You said that's an abandoned.
That's an abandoned old communication right away. Have you researched that? Because there's been the one parcel on the other side of 29's been sold to a private stakeholder there.
Yeah, so I've been in contact with Verizon, and Verizon now has the rights to it. And we've been...
Well, Verizon has rights to it?
Yeah, so we're discussing an extension currently.
Okay, good.
That may give you some more flexibility.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an old AT&T, so I guess Verizon's got first dibs.
It was even before it was Bell. Before it was
Sure.
Yeah, question for you. So one of the things that you, I think it was under 7,000 sort of thing, and you mentioned that you were trying to give some of the little road neighbors a little bit of relief.
Oh, trying to, in this particular area,
Okay.
trying to create more space, because the approved plan goes kind of, it's tough. Well, actually, yeah, these areas and these areas.
So you're not able to, if you keep extending to the right, or you're not able to get.
But no, I think we can. I mean, this, basically, this is one part that's a little bit different from Mr. Smith's plan here. And I think that we can probably work through that. And this is also still key in terms of trying to minimize the grading, because if you notice, really, in both parts of plans, you're going right with the contours. And on this plan, it's not. That's one of the biggest problems. In order to put that wiggle in the road, you're going all up and down the hill. So you really and that's the problem.
Yeah, and then the other suggestion I have, I know we've referenced it, planning commission, board supervisor meetings, is the 20-page legal documents involving additional approvals. If maybe you guys can, they're numbered, so maybe you can cross-reference those when you prepare it, so we know which ones are still liable, which you're willing to do, which ones you're not. It's everything. The first one is published, so I'm sorry.
Sure, we can, I'm not sure if that's the next step, that might be the step after that. My first goal would be to come up with something that you all agree with. But I think you're absolutely correct that the next step beyond that would be going back and examining the conditionings, because that gets into the whole legal issue. And just making sure, okay, what are the conditions that are not changing per se? Some of those conditions, they drop out because of the whole sewer issue at this point. And I did ask the chairman, we really didn't want to discuss sewer tonight. It's not one of the goals.